Book of Heaven, Volume 18, 4th to the 17th October 1925, page 14 to 22. October 4th, 1925. Repeating the same good serves to form the water with which to water the seed of the virtues. Everything that our Lord has done is suspended in the divine will, in waiting, to give itself to creatures. I was fusing myself in the most holy will of God according to my usual way, and while going around in it to place my "I love you" upon all things, I wished that my Jesus would see or hear nothing but my "I love you," or through this "I love you" of mine. And while repeating the sing-song of my "I love you," I thought to myself, it shows that I am really a little child, who can say nothing but the little story she has learned. And then, what good comes to me by repeating "I love you" over and over again? But while I was thinking of this, my adorable Jesus came out from within my interior, showing my "I love you" impressed everywhere in all of his divine person. On his lips, on his face, on his forehead, in his eyes, in the middle of his breast, on the back and in the center of the palms of his hands, on the tips of his fingers, in sum, everywhere. And with a tender tone, he told me, "My daughter, aren't you happy that none of the "I love yous" that come out of you go lost, but all remain impressed in me? And then, do you know what good comes to you by repeating them? You must know that when the soul decides to do some good, to exercise a virtue, she forms the seed of that virtue. By repeating those acts, she forms the water with which to water that seed in the earth of her heart. And the more often she repeats them, the more she waters that seed, and the plant grows beautiful and green, in such a way that it quickly produces the fruits of that seed. On the other hand, if she is slow in repeating, many times the seed remains suffocated, and if it comes out at all, it grows thin and never gives fruit. Poor seed, without enough water in order to grow. My sun does not rise over that seed, to give it fecundity, maturity and a beautiful color to its fruits, because it is not fecund. On the other hand, by always repeating those same acts, the soul contains much water with which to water that seed. My sun rises over that seed every time it sees it being watered, and it delights so much, knowing that it has much strength in order to grow, that it makes its branches reach up to me, and in seeing its many fruits, I pick them with pleasure, and I rest under its shadow. So, repeating your "I love you" for me procures for you the water with which to water and form the tree of love. Repeating patience waters and forms the tree of patience. Repeating your acts in my will forms the water with which to water and form the divine and eternal tree of my will. Nothing can be formed with one single act, but with many upon many repeated acts. Only your Jesus contains the virtue of forming all things, and the greatest things, with one single act, because I contain the creative power. But the creature, by dint of repeating the same act, forms the good she wants to do, bit by bit. Through habit, that good or that virtue becomes her nature, and the creature becomes the possessor of it, and it forms all of her fortune. This happens also in the natural order. No one becomes a teacher by having read the vowels and the consonants once or a few times, but by repeating them constantly, to the point of filling his mind, his will and his heart with all that science that is needed in order to be able to be a teacher to others. No one feels satiated if he does not eat, bite after bite, the food that is needed in order to be satiated. No one harvests the seeds if he does not repeat, who knows how many times, his work in his little field, and so with many other things. To repeat the same act is a sign that one loves, appreciates and wants to possess that very act which he does. Therefore, repeat and repeat incessantly, without ever tiring. Afterwards, I found myself outside of myself, and my sweet Jesus carried me around, through all those places in which, while being on earth, he had operated, suffered, prayed, and also cried. Everything was in act, everything he had done. And my beloved good told me, "My daughter, daughter of my supreme volition, my will wants to make you take part in everything. Everything you see is all the works I have done while being on earth, which my will keeps suspended within itself, because creatures do not dispose themselves to wanting to receive them, partly because they still do not know what I have done. See, here are the prayers I did at night time, covered with bitter tears and with ardent sighs for the salvation of all. They are all in waiting, to give themselves to creatures, in order to give them the fruits which they contain. Daughter, enter into them, cover yourself with my tears, clothe yourself with my prayers, so that my will may accomplish in you the effects which are in my tears, prayers and sighs. My will keeps, as though lined up within itself, the pains of my childhood, all of my interior acts of my hidden life, which are prodigies of grace and of sanctity, all the humiliations, glories and pains of my public life, and the most hidden pains of my passion. Everything is suspended. The complete fruit has not been taken by creatures, and I am waiting for the ones who must live in my will, so that they may no longer be suspended, but may pour themselves upon them, to give them their complete fruit. Only the ones who must live in my will make my goods no longer be suspended. Therefore, enter into my every act and pain, that my will may be fulfilled in you. Between you and me I do not want suspended things, nor do I tolerate being unable to tell you what I want. This is why I want to find my own will in you, so that nothing may oppose what my will itself wants to give you. And while Jesus was saying this, I moved from one act of Jesus to another, and I remained as though transformed, covered with his own acts, prayers, tears and pains. But who can say what I experienced? I hope that blessed Jesus will give me the grace to correspond, and to fulfill his adorable will in me, and in all. Amen. October 10, 1925. Exchange of wills between the Celestial Father and the Most Holy Virgin and Luisa. The Most Holy Virgin repeats for the soul who lives in the divine will, that which she did for her Son. As I was in my usual state, my poor mind found itself within an extremely high atmosphere. I seemed to see the divinity, and upon one knee of the Celestial Father, the Queen Mama, dead, as if she had no life. Surprised, I thought to myself, my Mama is dead, but what a happy death, to die on the knees of our Creator. But, looking more closely, I saw her will as though detached from her body, held in the hands of the Divine Father. Amazed, I looked, and I could not give myself a reason for what I was seeing, but a voice coming from the divine throne said, "This is the elect among all the elect, she is the all-beautiful, she is the only creature who gave us her will as gift, and left it, dead, upon our knees, in our hands. And we, in exchange, gave her the gift of our will. Greater gift we could not give her, because by acquiring this supreme will, she had the power to make the Word descend upon earth, and to have the redemption of mankind be formed. A human will would have no power nor attraction over us, but a divine will, given by ourselves to this incomparable creature, won over us, conquered us, enraptured us, and unable to resist, we surrendered to her petitions to make the Word descend upon earth. Now we are waiting for you to come to die upon our other knee, giving us your will, and we, in seeing it dead in our hands, as if it no longer existed for you, will give you the gift of our will, and through you, that is, through this will of ours given to you, our fiat will return to live upon earth. These two wills, dead upon our knees, will be the ransom for many rebellious wills, and we will keep them as a precious pledge, which will repay us for all the evils of the other creatures, because with our will they will be able to satisfy us." The voice could no longer be heard, and I found myself on the other paternal knee, in the act of breathing my last, and dying. But at that moment I found myself inside myself, but I am unable to say what I felt within me, only, I prayed from the heart that my will might never again enter into me, but only the divine might have life in me. Ah, it alone is the bearer of all goods and the repeater of Jesus within souls, and echoing the fiat of creation, it embraces everything and everyone as though in one breath, and requites God for the work of creation, redemption and sanctification. The divine will operating in us can do anything. It is the true Queen who reigns and rules over everything. Then, afterwards, I saw my celestial Mama with baby Jesus in her arms, as she kissed him and placed him to her breast to give him her most pure milk, and I said to her, "My Mama, and what about me, don't you give anything to me? Oh please, allow me at least to place my 'I love you' between your mouth and that of Jesus while you kiss, so that my little 'I love you' may run within everything you do." And she said to me, "My daughter, please do, place your little 'I love you' not only in the mouth, but in all the acts that pass between me and my Son. You must know that everything I did toward my Son, I intended to do toward those souls who were to live in the divine will, because, being in it, they would be disposed to receive all the acts I did toward Jesus, and I would find sufficient space in which to place them. So, if I kissed my Son, I kissed them, because I found them together with him in his supreme will. They were the first to be as though lined up within him, and my maternal love pushed me to let them partake in everything I did to my son. Great graces were needed for those who were to live in this holy will, and I placed all my goods, my graces, my sorrows, at their disposal, as their help, as defense, as strength, as support and as light, and I felt happy and honored with the greatest honors, to have, as my children, the children of the will of the Celestial Father, which I too possessed, and therefore I looked at them also as births from me. Even more, it can be said of them what is said about my son, that the first generations found salvation in the merits of the future Redeemer. In the same way, these souls, these future daughters, by virtue of the divine will operating in them, are the ones who incessantly implore salvation and graces for the future generations. They are with Jesus, and Jesus is in them, and they repeat together with Jesus that which Jesus contains. Therefore, if you want me to repeat for you what I did for my son, let me always find you in his will, and I will be generous with my favors toward you. October 17, 1925. The eternal wisdom has established that the food of man's soul be the will of God. After 2 days of most bitter privations of my highest good, Jesus, I felt him move in my interior. I seemed to see him in my interior, sitting, with his head leaning on one side, upon my shoulder, with his mouth turned toward my mouth, in the act of administering the words to me. I clasped him to myself, and I began to listen to him, abandoning all of myself in him. So, it seemed that he was saying to me, "My daughter, my will is more than food. Food gives strength to the body, it warms it, it increases the blood, it enlivens the intelligence if it is dim, it puts liveliness in all the members, and pushes the creature to new works and sacrifices. On the other hand, one who is on an empty stomach, not giving the necessary food to her body, is weak, cold, lacking in blood, her intelligence dim, exhausted in all of her members, and this leads her to melancholy and pushes her to do nothing, with no desire to sacrifice herself in anything. Poor one, she feels life missing in all of her person, and this is so true that, when an illness is mortal for a creature, she abandons food, and by abandoning food, she disposes herself to death. Now, since the eternal wisdom has established that the soul too should have food, she was assigned the supreme will as delicious food. So, one who takes this food is strong in doing good, she is as though soaked with love for her God. This food increases the divine blood in order to form the growth of the life of God within her. Like sun, it is reflected in her intelligence, to make her know her Creator and be formed in His likeness. It puts liveliness in the whole soul, in order to put all virtues in force, and it pushes her to new works and to sacrifices unheard of. The food of my will gives itself in every instant, at each breath, at night, during the day, in each thing, and as many times as one wants. Nor is there any danger, as with corporal food, that in taking too much of it, it may do harm and even produce illnesses. No, rather, the more one takes of it, the more it fortifies and raises the soul to the likeness of her Creator. One can remain with one's mouth always opened, in the act of taking this celestial food. All the opposite for one who does not take this food of my will. For one who does not take it at all, it can be said that she disposes herself to die eternally. As for one who seldom feeds herself, she is weak and inconstant in good, she is cold in love, she is lacking in divine blood, in such a way that the divine life grows as though anemic within her. The light of her intelligence is so dim, that she knows little or nothing of her Creator, and not knowing Him, His likeness is so far away from her, for as much as she is far away from the food of His will. She is without liveliness in doing good, because she does not have sufficient food, and now patience escapes her, now charity, now detachment from everything. So, the poor virtues live as though strangled, without enough food of my will. Ah, if one could see a soul without this celestial food, one would weep over her, so many are the miseries and the rubbish with which she is covered. However, there is more for one to compassionate if one sees a creature starved of corporal food, because many times she lacks the means in order to buy it. But the food of my will is given out for free, therefore one who does not take it deserves condemnation, and the condemnation is formed by herself, because she has rejected the food which gave her life. Then, afterwards, I heard that various people had suffered contrasts, humiliations and other things, and my sweet Jesus resumed his speaking. My daughter, just as the body contains bad blood which infects the good one, and it is necessary to apply vesicants, leeches, bloodlettings, in order to draw out the bad blood, otherwise one is in danger of remaining paralyzed for the rest of one's life. In the same way, the soul who lacks the continuous food of my will, contains many bad humors, and it is necessary to apply the vesicants of humiliations, in order to draw out the bad humor of self-esteem, the bites of leeches, in order to extract the infected humor of the vainglory of one's own self, immediate bloodlettings, to block and draw out the bad blood of the little attachments which she keeps forming in her heart toward the people whom she approaches in doing good. Otherwise, those humors would grow so much as to infect everything she does, in such a way as to remain paralyzed in good for the rest of her life. Punctures always do good. They are the sentries of the heart which maintain the blood pure. That is, the intention of the soul upright in doing good. Therefore, if all did good only in order to fulfill my will, punctures would not be necessary, because my will is the safeguard against all bad humors. So, punctures are also the penalties for those who do not take enough food of my will.